Have you ever walked away from a conversation, especially a hard one, and you thought, I didn't respond the way I wanted to? Maybe you said something and later realized it didn't land the way you meant it to. Over the past 8 episodes of this series, we have explored everything about multicultural communication and belonging. From how our native language shapes our communication to the practice of calling in. And today, in this final episode of the series, I'm going to give you a communication practice that ties all of it together and you can use it for the rest of your life. I call it having air in your communication. My name is Alejandra Siroca, and I'm a transformative communication teacher and coach who helps multicultural individuals, couples, and change makers transform their communication to create and maintain meaningful relationships at home and at work. If you're tired of rehashing conversations in your head, walking on eggshells, or feeling misunderstood in your most important relationships, and you want to learn how to show up with clarity, confidence, and compassion, subscribe to the Language Alchemy channel. Today, we will look at a communication tool that ties the series together, a tool I wrote about in my upcoming book titled Language Alchemy, the Essential Communication Toolkit for a Life of Peace, Authenticity, and Meaning that you can pre-order right now. So exciting! And before I talk about this transformative communication tool, let's honor the journey we took together. We began where it all started for me. When I was 15 years old as an international exchange student, and I arrived in Massachusetts rehearsing the instructions I had been given. Don't run, don't kiss anyone on the cheek, shake hands and say, nice to meet you. Only to be met by an American host family who ran toward me, kissed me on the cheek, and chose to meet me in a way that followed my cultural customs. That moment taught me that belonging is not something that happens to you. It is something you choose to offer. And it moves in two directions. One, we can create the space of belonging. And two, we can also claim our sense of belonging. In our second episode, we looked at the immigrant experience, the invisible daily effort of communication immigrants make. I shared the story of my British friend at a New York deli when he was made fun of and called the tomato guy for the way he said one word with his British accent. I also talked about a moment at a brunch when I laughed at something I had not understood because admitting I didn't catch what the person said just felt too vulnerable. In that episode, we talked about performing understanding and the exhaustion underneath it, all in an attempt to belong. In the third episode, we explored how culture shapes everything about how we communicate, and not just the words we use, but the way we think, the way we structure ideas, and even what we talk or don't talk about. In that episode, we discovered something important, that no communication style is the right one. They're all different. They're all shaped by history, culture, and context. And of course, they are all worth understanding. In the fourth episode, we named things that needed naming within the context of multicultural communication and belonging. We talked about xenophobic words and phrases that live in our everyday speech, often without any awareness of their painful histories. We asked ourselves whether our language aligns with our values, and I shared with you that when we discover it doesn't, we can choose differently. That's the beauty about language. There are so many ways of saying the same message. And so, we can choose different words that do not perpetuate further pain, misinformation, or divisiveness. And instead, we can express ourselves in a way that communicates our interconnectedness, that values all human beings, and that brings forth dignity for all. In the fifth episode, we looked at questions that sting, questions that carry microaggressions, that sound like curiosity and sometimes even like a compliment, but that carry an assumption underneath. And that assumption is, I have already decided you are not from here. I have labeled you as foreign, weird, and someone not worth having as my peer. Someone who cannot belong to my circle of people. In our sixth episode, Natalie Cohen, speech language pathologist and one of my beloved friends, joined me for a conversation about accent. We talked about the biases we attach to the ways people sound, the hard work of communicating in a language that isn't your first language, and what both speakers and listeners can do to meet, respect, and understand each other so that we can all feel a sense of belonging. In our seventh episode, we made an essential distinction between fitting in and belonging. Fitting in is effortful and performative. It means constantly scanning your environment and editing yourself. Belonging is what it feels like to be accepted as you are, not in spite of your differences, but including them. Because you, like everyone else, is both a unique being and also a valuable member of our precious and diverse human family. And in our eighth episode, we talked about the practice of calling in, inspired by the brilliant Loretta Ross. We explored an important question. What do we do when someone says something hurtful? How can we respond in a brave, loving, and authentic way that holds people accountable without shaming them? Wow, what a journey we took together. And I also want to thank Jill, Thais, Daza, Candice, and Ellen for emailing me and telling me how specific episodes were useful to them. And now, in this final episode, I want to give you a communication tool that ties the whole series together. I call it having air in your communication. Just like we sometimes take the air we breathe for granted, we do the same with communication. Now, what do I mean when I say having air in your communication? Well, AIR is an acronym. A is for awareness, I is for intentionality, and R is for responsibility. Awareness in communication means noticing before, during, and after a conversation who you are communicating with, what you are communicating about, and how you are communicating it. When you bring awareness to your communication, you ask yourself, am I communicating in alignment with my values? Or am I communicating in alignment with my inherited patterns and reactive habits? Most of us communicate the way our families communicated. And as we explore throughout these series, how we have been taught to communicate is not always in alignment with what we value. When you hear someone make a derogatory comment about immigrants, awareness is what allows you to notice before you react what is actually happening. It's what allows you to feel the shift in the room and stay with it for a moment rather than immediately changing the subject or going quiet. As I have said again and again in this series and in the Language Alchemy podcast as a whole, you cannot transform what you are not aware of. Awareness is always the first step. The I in AIR is for intentionality. Once you're aware, you can take a moment to ask yourself, what is my intention here? Do I want to win this exchange? Do I want to release my discomfort? Do I want to shame, correct, or prove something? Or is my intention something deeper? Do I want to create a space where this person can reflect without shutting down? Or do I want to communicate in a way that honors everyone's dignity, including my own? Do I want to belong or to help someone else belong? Intentionality means that before your words come out, you have connected them to your values. Intentionality is that bridge between your values and your words. And finally, the R in AIR is for responsibility. Responsibility in communication means two things. First, it means you have the ability to respond, not just react. Even in the most difficult moments, even when you're hurt, scared, or uncertain, you do have the capacity to choose how to engage, including if you need to disengage, because that would be the skillful option. You may need some time, and that's completely okay. Secondly, responsibility means learning not to react, learning not to disappear into silence, taking distance, or avoiding others. The second aspect of responsibility is that we are accountable for the impact of our communication. Even when your intention was good, you can mean well and still cause harm. Good intentions do not erase impact. And when we cause harm, even unintentionally, we need to acknowledge it and own it honestly, without collapsing into shame. This is what mature, conscious adults do. This is what Loretta Ross pointed to when she said, and I quote, "Emotional maturity and relational intelligence require a change in our communication." As we close this multicultural communication and belonging series, remember that when you find yourself in a difficult communication moment, especially one where cultural difference is present, where harm may have been done, or where belonging is being compromised, pause and then consider AIR. Be aware of who you're with. Be aware of who you're talking to, what you're saying, and whether what you're saying is in alignment with your values. Check your intention and take responsibility for your ability to respond and for any unintended negative impact. The Language Alchemy AIR framework is a deep and beautiful communication practice that you can use for life. It is so deep that I devoted a whole chapter to this practice in my upcoming book titled Language Alchemy, the Essential Communication Toolkit for a Life of Peace, Authenticity, and Meaning. You can pre-order the book by visiting languagealchemybook.com. I will add the link in the show notes. And now, let's recap what you've heard in this episode. First, we honor the full journey of the series. 8 episodes of deep, honest, and loving explorations of how language either opens or closes the door to belonging. And then I offered you the Language Alchemy AIR framework as a communication practice for life. A is for awareness, I for intentionality, and R for responsibility. This series came from the knowing that transformative communication is not just a skill, it is a practice. It is a form of evolutionary activism, a way of choosing day after day in every conversation what kind of world we want to live in. When we choose language that creates belonging, and we are contributing to a culture of interconnectedness in which we value every member of our precious and diverse human family. Thank you for being here. Thank you for listening. Thank you for your willingness to stay curious, stay kind, and keep choosing your words with love and intention. Until next time, and as we say in Argentina, ciao ciao. Original music by Gary Lapo. You can find all links in the show notes at languagealchemy.com.